this stuff was real. Could you imagine being in the kind of hailstorm that is just ripping through trees? Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible. This is day 20, covering Exodus chapters 7, 8, and 9.
In Exodus 7, Moses and Aaron perform the first signs to Pharaoh, but he ignores them. In Exodus 8, there's the plague of frogs, the plague of lice, the plague of flies. Pharaoh says Israel can go, but then changes his mind. And in Exodus 9, God instructs Moses, and there is the plague of livestock, the plague of boils, and the plague of hail.
Alrighty then. So this is one of those days where I think you've got a lot more to crack on with than I do here, mate. I see Pharaoh is an idiot as one of them, so looking forward to hearing about that.
Sure.
What have you got for me, mate?
So the first thing that struck me, Exodus 7:22, the Egyptian magicians did the same things by their secret arts as the signs that Moses gives. And this obviously is part of why Pharaoh's heart is hard at this point.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, I've been also doing a bit of a study of Revelation lately, and something that the pastor is saying is that you have to go back to the Old Testament a lot to make sense of Revelation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how this is kind of antichrist vibes, is what I said. You know, man can often sort of somewhat replicate things that appear that they should be from God. Obviously, it's not the same, but that is what's happening here. But what's then interesting is then Exodus 8:19, the magicians even say to Pharaoh at this point, look, this is the finger of God.
Yeah.
But Pharaoh's heart is still hardened at this point, and he just won't listen. And that, to answer your question, is why Pharaoh is an idiot. Because, yeah, imagine, you know, you've got all these signs and wonders, you're there in your little whatever golden robes and stuff, and your magicians are doing their thing, and then suddenly they say, no, actually that's too far, Pharaoh, we can't do that. He said, screw it, I'm still Pharaoh. I'm not going to let him go anyway. What am I going to do without slaves? Not build a sphinx? Get out of here.
Yeah, very true, man. I suppose that kind of touches on one of the things which I think is coming up, jumping the gun a little bit, but this whole Pharaoh's hardness of heart. I think I was just reading a bit more in the old Faithful Apologetics Bible just now, and it was talking about how I think there is some, not backlash, that's a little harsh, but there are some people questioning whether Moses was trying to deceive Pharaoh by saying we're going to go out into the wilderness to sacrifice for 3 days. Was that just a ruse just so they can get 3 days out and just leg it? Or what? And actually what it says in there was this wasn't a deception. It was actually... God made a few sort of smaller requests of Moses to put to Pharaoh just to highlight the level of hardness of Pharaoh's heart. It wasn't saying, no, of course I'm not going to let my entire workforce go. What Pharaoh would, but to be so unwilling to even let your workforce have a few days off to go and sacrifice to their gods, that is a level of hardness which seems unreasonable. So that's sort of why some of that is in there. And then I know, again, we've touched on it a few times, the Bible in 1 year. What's it called? We're doing? Not us, the other ones.
Bible Project.
There it is. In the videos that they put through, the little devotional was just so fantastic. And it mentioned in there about how the first few plagues were to highlight mate, I need to go and watch it again. It's so good. Watch it today if you haven't already. It's so good. But touching on about how the various plagues had different impacts on Pharaoh's hardness of heart, whether it was God hardening his heart or him hardening his own heart, kind of thing.
Well, and they split it up, don't they? So for the first few, it's really just Pharaoh's choice. Now God knows he's outside of time, so God knows that he's not going to turn back anyway. But then it gets to a point of no return. And we discussed this off camera a minute ago, didn't we? That obviously we have the luxury of Jesus, of course. So we don't have to worry about that. We can always turn back and repent. But at this point, when it does get to the point that God hardens Pharaoh's heart, it's to glorify himself, to show his greatness and his power, but also it's because there is a point of no return. And that's what I have said Yeah, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, Exodus 9:12. And I just put,
Yeah.
I would not want to be Pharaoh right now.
No, no kidding. Kidding.
There is something also I just quickly add to that, which I thought was really interesting. Is it Exodus 9:20? Those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord hurried to bring their slaves and their livestock inside. This is before the hail comes down. So
Yeah.
even through, like, obviously, if you look at it myopically, it looks like God is like hardening Pharaoh's heart and not allowing the Israel to go. But no, the reason he's doing this is because out of all of these plagues, actually people are coming to know him.
Hmm.
So even, if you zoom out a bit, there's actually even good coming out of this seeming bad right now.
Yeah.
And I just love that I saw that. I didn't notice that first time around.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm surprised you haven't touched on it yet, but the very beginning of Exodus 8, it's 7 days after the Lord struck the Nile.
I
But
missed that 7.
yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it to me again, like you said, just off camera, how I'd mentioned previously, which I kind of remember, but I don't remember my source for it. So unfortunately, my university, whatever they're called, tutors would hate me for not giving my references here.
Mm,
But the Lord brought stuff like the frogs and the locusts and stuff. And then so did Pharaoh's wise men, but the Lord got rid of them, and
mm,
Pharaoh's wise men couldn't get rid of them. They
mm.
brought this stuff and had no follow up answers to it, whereas God had the follow up answers to it.
Right.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard that, but just an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, I've no idea. I remember you saying that in the first Bible of the year that we did though,
Yeah,
and I was loving that.
if you have
Loving
any
that, mate.
ideas why, let us know.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things which I found very interesting, this is not theological, this is not anything really. So the one that the plague that the wise men could not do was the gnats, which I
Mm,
just think interesting because in my own personal opinion, gnats, mosquitoes, all those kind of little bitey things are pure evil. So the fact that the wise men, who are presumably using some kind of satanic arts to do this, couldn't produce the most evil little bastards on the planet. Weird, just weird to me.
Yeah, maybe it's an intricacy thing, like because a gnat is so tiny and small. A locust is a bit bigger, a frog is a bit bigger, whatever. A gnat is so tiny. I don't know, but yeah, above our pay grade. We haven't said that for a while, but it
True,
is above our pay
true.
grade.
Uh,
Um, and oh, I just mentioned as well something else is like touching on what you just said. They can't get rid of their dark arts, sort of replicas of what God is trying to do. But it's amazing also, and so obvious to anyone who was watching, the fact that the people of Israel, so they were in the land of Goshen, and Exodus 9:26, that is protected.
yeah,
None of the plagues hit them at all. And again, there's no way that they can do that with the dark arts. Theirs
yeah,
is they
true.
just release it.
Yeah,
Whereas,
that was also mentioned by some of the people in our reading plan
mm,
earlier. Yeah, it is fascinating. And this stuff was real. Could you imagine being in the kind of hailstorm that is just ripping through trees? This
yeah,
is like, again, I mentioned it before, we've traveled enough. I'm sure you've seen some pretty outrageous storms, same as I have, but nothing in that scale. That is like just
no,
unreal.
mm, yeah, I think to have hail that enormous. What was that?
We had a little drink break there, both of us. And
Yeah, we both did it at the same time. That was just best friends.
for those
Just
of you listening, that made no sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was well, there might have been a little glug, but yeah, that no, it is well, it's biblical, isn't it? Literally, and I guess that comes full circle. I was talking at the beginning, to understand Revelation, you need to look back to the Old Testament. A lot of the signs in Revelation are similar kind of signs, right? Even
Yeah.
on a grander scale, wiping out a third of the earth and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that you don't mess with God, basically, and let the
Much.
people go.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot to end on, really. Don't mess with God.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit short, but that's not a problem. Any questions, feel free to visit the Facebook page, Two Brits and the Bible.
Or you can email us at twobritsbible@gmail.com.
Have a lovely day.